In this inaugural episode of The Range, I'm joined by Chris Houghton, lifelong friend, fellow golfer, and aspiring entrepreneur. Listen in as we explore the intersection of golf and entrepreneurship, sharing our personal journeys with the sport, the challenges and excitement of starting a business together, and delving into the evolving landscape. The conversation highlights the importance of friendship in business, the value of complementary skills, and the lessons learned from past ventures. Welcome to The Range, the podcast where we explore the intersection of passion and business in the world of golf. I'm your host, Ari Ratner, and each episode will dive into the stories of the innovators, entrepreneurs, and trailblazers who are transforming the game we love into thriving businesses. Whether you're a golf enthusiast, an inspiring entrepreneur, or just curious about the business behind the sport, you're in the right place. So grab your clubs and join us on The Range as we tee off into the world of golf entrepreneurship. Welcome to The Range. This is an introduction to a podcast that we are producing that sits in the center of golf and entrepreneurship. Over the course of the next few months, you'll see a lot of me, unfortunately, as I'll be acting as the host. But I wanted to bring on a close friend of mine and business partner, Chris Houghton, for the initial podcast to help introduce The Range, talk about golf, talk about entrepreneurship, and just give the audience a sense of what we'll be covering in future episodes. So Chris, welcome to the podcast. So why don't you give the audience a tease into what we're pursuing? We don't need to go into super detail because it has not launched yet, and there are still some kind of hurdles we have to overcome to get it to market. But talk a little bit about the excitement in the space, why golf, and just a tease into the business that we're pursuing.
Sure. Yeah. So we're looking at initially starting golf-inspired beverages and potentially products that will be along that line that are focused on really elevating your game and having added focus to your game while you play the game golf. I think as golf has evolved over really, I think starting with Tiger Woods and making it open to a whole different demographic of people. And then I think honestly through COVID, there were more people coming out to play the game because it's one of the only things you could do. There's a lot of investment in fusion going in the game, and the game is looking different. It's more accessible to different people. Not everybody wants that traditional country club feel. So I think that this is a good time for new products to be coming into the space, new looks to be coming into the space. I just saw Ghostface Killa is attaching to Malbon golf lines with new clothing, right? And Jason Day had started that
Everything
few years ago.
Almost everything is already sold out, but I went online to check it out.
I knew I should have gotten something when it popped up. I didn't get those Woo Dunks either, and I was trying to be on top of that. So yeah, I just think there's tremendous energy in space. I just think there's the current golf community looks a lot different than it did 25 years ago or 10 years ago even. And there's just tremendous excitement around the game and where things can go with a creative mindset.
Talk a little bit about, you always hear, or there's always something said about entrepreneurship and not starting a business with your friends or family. Give the audience a perspective as to why you're open to doing that and maybe some of the pitfalls that you are aware of that you want to avoid.
Yeah, I think honestly that's something I've tried to adhere to in general, whether it's a specific entrepreneurial venture or kind of at work, right? Like I kind of I would certainly have personal relationships with coworkers and whatnot, but I would try to keep business. And I think it's something that I've been wary of, but am open to, one, because no matter what, as you and I talked about this initially, like let's establish some values or some principles in going to this. And one of them is that friendship is more important to me than any success or product. So like if we can use that as an operating principle or value that we hold in this endeavor, that should help remind us of what to revert back to. Having not experienced something specific in a two-person business venture, I don't know specifically what pitfalls would be, but I think, over decision-making, finances, two key areas that would be ones to look out for. And then I think there is also potential for like business lines or direction. Like, do we want to do this? Like the existence of the business and what its core is for? Like, I think there could be a point down the road where our visions may change, or we've seen extra alignment or divergence. So I think those are a few things that would be kind of cautionary as we go into this endeavor. But I think ultimately, kind of keeping at the core that, let's make this what we can make it. There is a business aspect to it, but ultimately my kind of core philosophy coming in is like friendship is more important. Let's have some fun, but then let's also do something great.
I think that's a good point in terms of, and really important, kind of laying out those business principles and then making sure that that stays consistent throughout is really important. I think one aspect of that line of don't get into business with your friends or family that's missed is the idea that friends and family have a lot of similarities, right? So you and I have been friends for over 30 years. We are alike in many ways, but when it comes to business and our skill set, we're different in a lot of ways. So maybe talk about how our different skills could work together in a really positive way to make the business more likely to be successful. Doesn't matter whether we're friends for 30 years or acquaintances for one. We're bringing unique skill sets to the table that hopefully will help drive success in the business we're pursuing. But talk a little bit about how those different skill sets can work together to overcome the challenges of working with friends or family.
I think we're still figuring it out. For one, we've known each other for 35 years, 34, whatever it is, like 30 plus years. And in that time, surely we've had like endeavors that we've embarked upon that we needed to jointly do something to get there. But it's probably like taking a road trip or solving some group problem that we had, right? Not like trying to create a business venture where there's legal, there's finance, there's creative, there's product, there's compliance, all this stuff, right? So just in the last few months working together on what I would say are new things for our relationship is learning our different styles to approach those. And like we're the same people in that space, but our focus is a bit different. So I think part of it is still figuring out like what complementary skills and interests and strengths and weaknesses are. So I think we're still just kind of working through that. Like we have our weekly phone call. Sometimes I'll get off the call. I'm like, I wish like I wanted to tell Ari this, but I didn't feel like I could have told him that in that way. But then like, so maybe next time trying to do it or, saying it in between the call. So I think I think there is still like there's that friendship barrier that still exists, but like as you and I also talked in the beginning, is like, so let's challenge each other, right? Like let's try to push each other to get through or preconceived notions or what have you. But I think as we've worked together, kind of volunteering in places where you feel like we have a strength or showing some production or action in a certain area kind of helps one of us determine, hey, like, well, you got that, go run with it. So I think we're both versatile enough that we can be complementary in the various things that we're doing. So, but someone could take a lead and then the other one can kind of fill in, what have you.
Pivoting a bit back to the range and the podcast, as you think about the idea of a conversation around golf and entrepreneurship, what are you looking forward to listening to, on a episode by episode basis?
Good question. I think it's just people that are a couple things. One, people that are doing something new or innovative in the space, like maybe repurposing a golf course into a different type of use golf course. I think we've seen some of that sort of thing out there. Things like products or brands that are just kind of cool and unique and have either a good vibe or a good message behind it. I do think also some kind of aspect or connection to like the broader community of golf or specific communities that people are targeting, be it a demographic or a location, what have you. I think those would be interesting topics to hear. And then I think from a kind of entrepreneur perspective, like, how did you do it? Like, did you just this thing fall in your lap and you take and run with it, or did you have to grind it out? And so hearing that kind of like personal perseverance aspect of kind of people's stories around the game of golf is interesting to me.
Yeah, my assumption is that most of the stories will be about perseverance, about overcoming some aspect or challenge, and making sure and having the resilience to push through, which, cheesy as it sounds, is not dissimilar to the game of golf, right?
Great point. Yeah.
So I'm super excited to get the podcast going. I think I'm super excited to continue to work on building a business with you, and let's see where both can go. And hopefully, shortly after this episode's released, we'll start to release some of the other episodes that have been recorded, and we'll see where it takes us. But the goal of this podcast is to help tell the different stories of entrepreneurs in golf. You and I are just starting out on our journey. We'll talk to folks that are in a similar time frame as we are. We'll talk to folks that have been in business for a number of years, all trying to just showcase the diversity in the sport from a business perspective. So
I'd love to ask you a couple of questions quickly
Sure.
so people can get to know the host of the podcast a little bit.
Sure.
As long as I've known you, you've had an entrepreneurial mindset, be it prospects, be it mascots, and a ton of other ideas that you kicked out. What in you do you think? I don't think I personally have that kind of creative mindset to come up with a product and try to figure out how to take it to market. Like, what in you do you think it is that drives you to be that creative entrepreneurial mindset?
That's a great question. The two businesses that I've started include the business magazine aimed at young professionals when I was in college, and then a sports licensed bath toy business when my wife was pregnant with our first child, and both businesses failed tremendously, but I learned a ton. The journey has been something that I want to continue, and so I don't think it's anything in me that's different than anyone else. It's just something I enjoy and pursuing my passions, and part of the reason I started the idea around the business magazine is because I didn't know what I wanted to do at an undergrad. And I'm a firm believer that, to your point earlier, we have one life to live. So let's spend it working on things that we're passionate about. And I think my journey around entrepreneurship is just an extension of my passions.
Absolutely. Your passion comes through and your perseverance. Yeah, absolutely. And you touched on some of the things that are great about the game of golf, is like the perseverance, the challenge, some competition, but like the whole aspect of honesty and integrity and like keeping score on the rules is great, I think, to have to apply to life in general.
Yeah.
All right. Only got two more questions. Who is your favorite golfer? I don't know that. I should know that. I feel like past or present or future.
I would say Jack Nicklaus, simply because he's a Buckeye and I'm a Buckeye.
I should know that. The Golden Bear Buckeye connection.
Yeah. It's easy for me to say Tiger because, like you, I grew up watching him and started to appreciate the sport because of him. But when I think of kind of an all-time favorite, I share being an alma mater or being an alumni at Ohio State with him. So I'd say the Golden Bear.
Can't go wrong with that. Great answer. And then, all right, last question, very much related to yourself and the podcast. You've worked for some really impressive companies and brands in EA Sports, Under Armour, of which you gave me this several years ago when you worked there, Chobani, and other, just to name a few, right? And then other several impressive ones. As you've taken those experience in brand management and those large brands, how do you kind of take what you've learned and then apply that to an endeavor like this?
From a business perspective, business comes down to kind of four key areas in my mind. It comes down to community, comes down to culture, comes down to collaboration, and it comes down ultimately to commerce. So, I've been lucky enough to work at some major brands, some of you whom you've mentioned, and I've been able to take a lot of aspects from each of those brands. And so, my approach to business is using the things that I've learned and attaching them to an idea that either I've had or we've had or you've had, and trying to figure out how to create a place in the market for that brand and product to exist. And I think it comes easier when it combines your passion, right? And I think that's one area that this idea that we're pursuing is easy. I use that term loosely, is easy because it's hitting on a couple of the passions that you and I share. Certainly heavily weighted in golf, but also weighted in just having enjoyment on the course. And that could mean a number of different things. But I don't know if that answers your question, but like that's how I approach or want to approach this endeavor, and how I've approached other endeavors is bringing kind of the experience I've gained over my career into a new idea.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you a handful of rapid fire questions and then we'll jump.
Right.
Best course you've ever played?
I mean, it's undoubtedly one of the Pinehurst courses I just played this year. I liked number 2, but that sucker was hard, man. I think number 4 was my favorite. And part of that could have been because it was the first course we played there, but like they're all great. But I think Pinehurst number 4 was my favorite.
Alternatively, what is a course you have not played that would be on your bucket list?
Yeah, Augusta's got to be one, but being that that's probably not realistic, anything in Scotland would be awesome.
Yeah. Well, maybe a 50th birthday present is flying out there for a few rounds.
I'm getting too close to that number, but yeah, sounds good.
Favorite drink or snack on the course?
I'm going to give you one of these. The snack is a hot dog. I mean, how can you go wrong with a hot dog on a golf course?
On the turn or anytime?
On the turn, preferably. Yeah. Drink, I'm just going to go for golfing, a light beer. I mean, that's just a good beverage to have and sip throughout the day.
Favorite club, driver or wood, wedge or wood, iron or putter?
Man, I think that changes weekly. Right now, it's my 46 degree Titleist Vokey wedge that I'm using for everything from 100 yards and in, basically, and chipping around the green. So I'm using it a lot. I have some other clubs that I'll use in there for sand traps and whatnot. But the 46 degree wedge I got this year is my favorite right now.
Last question. If you could play a round with any golfer, who would it be and why?
It's Tiger Woods, man. I just can't. He's still my favorite golfer. When he's playing, I will watch all of his rounds. It doesn't matter. So there's a ton of other awesome ones out there, but it's undoubtedly Tiger Woods.
I don't think you're alone in that, but good answer and good answers. Appreciate the time, Chris. Appreciate your friendship. It's been a fun few months kind of building the business and pursuing kind of our passions, and look forward to seeing what the future entails. But appreciate you jumping on. As I mentioned, we'll be releasing new episodes on every other week basis, and look forward to giving the audience a peek into golf and entrepreneurship.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me. Hit them well.
All right, Chris. Thanks. Bye.
Later.